feel like I start the show every day in a handicap position, and the beer partially makes up for it, but like there's a dog's head sleeping on my foot, so I can't move.
Of course you can.
Um, it's just really, you know, I don't know how I pull this show off every day with all the hazards I have to go through. It's really it's a terrible thing. So today we're going to talk more about the future. So we started talking about the future. We went from a couple weeks ago. It was almost a month ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we went into the campground of the past from 1975 to 2000 to 2025 to KOA's Campground of the Future report that they put out in like 2019, 2020 that dated very well. Last week we talked a little bit about the Campground of the Future in between like our medical advice that was really sage and all that stuff and everything else we were talking about. And then we feel like we want to continue this conversation a little bit. So I think Scott's done some additional research. We're going to touch on some things there. And then we're going to continue the list that I had researched, maybe some talking points and some discussion we can take away from there. And then I also want to talk a little bit about, surprise, surprise, AI, but as it relates to the future of the campground industry as a whole in ways that you've never heard me say it before. So we've talked about like the chatbots and the call bots and the automations and all that stuff. We're not going to talk about any of that today. We're going to talk about some crazy stuff that like maybe depending on your perspective is likely or not likely to happen. I feel like most of you are in the not likely camp, but we'll see how this stuff dates. This is just some of my opinion, but also mostly just some research that I've done in AI and pontificating and, telling it to think and give me its unbiased opinion. And so some of the stuff that comes out of that is, well, quite interesting. I shared some of it with you, Scott. Would you agree? Is it maybe a little far-fetched? Some of it's not so, but it'll be interesting to see how quickly some of this stuff moves. So before we get to any of that, though, what's on your desk? What happened last week? And we're missing Greg again. Greg's super busy. Got his new company, Vireo, consulting all over the place. Doesn't have time for the little people anymore. But he will be back, we think, hopefully, in a few weeks. So,
I had kind of two short things. I was thinking about before the show. I'm like, what do I want to talk about when on this topic? And the first one is the kind of the unfortunate incident at Old Orchard Beach where the two women died in the explosion in their RV.
Propane.
And
yeah.
I tell you, you start thinking about that kind of stuff, and obviously it's a horrible event, but it really just speaks to the idea of just for people, just make sure you really are maintaining your RVs. Make sure you have someone really qualified to look at them, and also especially when it comes to the propane. Living here in the northern tier, as you do, Brian, too, there are a lot of people who, especially off-grid people, but in general here, people use propane a lot for their heat. And without fail, there are always incidents like this. And it's one of those things to never cut corners on.
We know if they cut corners. Sorry,
I don't know. And I shouldn't allude to the fact that they did. I'm just saying that, it highlights the fact that how important it is to have, all that stuff just really buttoned up, because it's just, and part of me doesn't even know what to think about it at some level, but it is impactful. You just, two people are enjoying their RV, they light a candle and just have this super unfortunate incident. But the other thing, did you have something you wanted to say about it, Brian?
No. I read the news story. That's all.
Yeah, I know. It's just one of those things I think about a lot. Honestly, I'm just rambling a little bit because I'm not even sure what to think about it, how it impacts everything. Maybe it doesn't impact us, but the other thing though is that on a much kind of brighter note is that on a personal level, it's I've been invited to do the opening talk at university this the end of the month.
Like a commencement speech?
It's no, I wish it was. No.
It should be a convention speech, man.
It's actually a design class for a class that's doing it's an architectural class that's designing their own like small glamping park. They're doing structures for it. It's their assignment. And so they've invited me to be the guest presenter for their first class, the opening class, about kind of how to use research in the kind of work they're doing and how they can benefit from using data and guest experience stuff like that. So yeah, it was kind of cool. I've never done anything like that before, and it was it's nice to be invited.
I'm like I would fit, like I'm glad they don't invite me to do like commencement speeches either. Like I can't imagine myself giving a commencement speech at like people who are graduating. Like, raise your hand if you're in the crowd and you're a doctor, or, well, really a doctor, right? You guys are excused. I'm not talking about you. Everybody else, thank God college is over because they just taught you 4 years of shit that doesn't even relevant anymore. But like doctors, for sure. Like we need you to go through college. Absolutely. There's probably a few other professions I'm missing too. Trade schools and stuff like that, right? But anyway, that's a whole other rabbit hole we probably shouldn't go down on the show. We like to be controversial, but maybe, I don't know. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's nice for you. That's awesome, man. Congratulations. What came across my desk this week besides some of the stuff we're going to talk about here in a second that came across my desk that was really fascinating to me. I don't know if anything. Yeah, we'll just use this opportunity to do this because I can't think of anything off the fly. So what came across my desk this week was, for those of you who know him, there's a guy named, and I'm not going to play the clip, but there's a guy named Emad Mustak, who is the founder of Stability AI, Stable Diffusion, like one of the early models that was open source. And he quit as CEO last year, but like he's got this whole really cool new project that I was learning about this week, where he calls it the intelligent internet. I'm not going to do it justice. Go look up the video. It's on the Moonshot podcast with Pierre Diamandis and a few other people. He talks about it for like 2 hours. Really interesting stuff about how he's trying to open source and make AI really affordable. They've built like open source medical AI doctors, like AI agents, like a ChatGPT, but specifically trained in the medical field. And he was saying that OpenAI has a benchmark for medicine that human doctors score 15% on. And I'm going to be close with these numbers, right? But like pretty close. ChatGPT's current model, I think, scores in the low 40s. And this model that he's created that's open source, that's specifically trained on medicine, scores like a 47% on that benchmark. So like 3+ times better already than the typical, generally speaking, right, doctor. And it's only going to get better than that. But the key thing is his little model runs on, do you know what a Raspberry Pi is, Scott?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, it's like runs on a little Raspberry Pi. It's like a 10-year-old computer that you can get for like $40 on Amazon, maybe even cheaper, like a little circuit board thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so his part of his premise, and again, you should go watch this because it's way deeper than this, and I'm not going to do it justice, is like just creating a world where all of those different AIs, a specialized medical one that can like diagnose or provide advice or analyze stuff, but then also an AI that's every individual specific type of doctor, and then every individual type of accountant and lawyer and all those, and they're all tied together on the blockchain through like a coin that he's going to call Foundation Coin or whatever, right? And the whole premise is that these are available globally, worldwide, free for everybody to use. The idea is let's get an AI agent in everybody's pocket that they can basically have for as cheap as $1 a month that works on their behalf. So like my AI Brian is advocating for me. And it really is an interesting scenario. You look at how we handle democracy today, right? In the United States, let's just take that because that's where I'm most familiar with. You vote, but you don't really get your opinion heard, right? The nuances of your opinion, your individual beliefs, your thoughts, your feelings, what you believe or don't believe on a policy level, like never really gets heard because it's impossible to do that, right? It's not a fault of the United States. It's a casualty of having a democracy with hundreds of millions of people in it. It is just literally impossible, no matter how good of a politician you are or aren't, or what party you're a part of or not, to go and shake everybody's hand and to then also remember their individual thoughts and opinions and nuances on every little issue, right? And take those into account as you continue to vote. But it is possible with blockchain and AI. It is possible for the AI to remember and know every single individual's personal preference. And can you imagine then the data and scientific polls we could have on the population? And really then, honestly, like, do we even need the senator? Because if we aggregate all the data and 51% of people want something some way, then the AI just votes that way. Is that a better democracy, Scott?
It might
It's
be. It
fair.
might be better than what we have now.
Well, like we could complain, not complain, like everybody goes in and out of power, right? We're not here to talk politics, but generally speaking, if an individual's personal preference can be heard at a more granular level, then that generally by definition would mean that the people get literally what they want, right? Not just the
Right.
people who vote or turn out or happen to be in a county that's in a gerrymandering district or in a state where they believe blue and they're in red, or they believe red and they're in blue, right? Keep knocking my mic around. Like generally, it's just a more representative democracy of what the people truly want. I think that's has to be a plus, right? Like
Sure.
obviously, you're going to be unhappy if you're in the minority, but still, if the data is there, like true quantifiable, who knows if people believe it data anymore, right? But like actual verifiable, like this is what the whole population believes. I don't know. I think that's interesting. So, but the whole premise behind it is like is he talks and then and we've talked about this before briefly. Again, no monetary expert here in the economy, but we talked about how the Fed creates debt. And that's how the whole banking system runs, right? You go to work, you get paid, you put your money in the bank takes your money and then creates more debt from it and then loans to businesses, and then the cycle continues. It's a debt-fueled economy, right? His whole idea for the future is that money is created by the people, not the banks, by doing things that are good for society. Starting a cancer research computer, being kind to your neighbor, being what it's really interesting, man. And it does, like, it sounds far-fetched, but he's really spent a year thinking all this stuff out. And I think that if AI even does half of what I think it's going to do in the next 5 years, there's probably going to be a need for something to change. And a system like that is very interesting to me to do. What do you think? Could that happen? Could people like earn money? Could we make money based on people being kind and doing good things for the world?
Boy, a lot of people have tried it. It hasn't worked so far, but it
Yeah.
could.
But we haven't had the blockchain yet, right? The blockchain is the key, the verifiable, tangible, unfakeable, right?
Right. If it's right, and if it's truly democratized, then yeah.
I don't know. We'll have to see how it all shakes out. But
We're
that was
here for the
interesting to me. And so he was making, in the course of that, he was making some predictions about AI because he knows a lot about that. And so were the other people on the show. So I'm going to take a look at a couple things, not from that show necessarily, but just that sparked my interest that I researched with AI. That's part of the discussion, and we'll talk about in the future in a second. But I came across, as I was watching some videos, some super old commercials. You may remember these, Scott, from AT&T. We're going to go all the way back to 1993. Do you remember what you were doing in 1993, Scott?
I do.
What were you doing in 1993?
I was living in Arizona, working for United Healthcare.
Okay. 1993, I was 11 years old. And boy, where was I? Must have been Stowe, Ohio at that time. What grade is 11? I don't even know. I should know. Like, well, I know 11. This is why we don't give Jessica a mic nonstop. She's like, I'm like,
Sixth grade.
what grade is 11? What do you mean what grade? What do you mean age? No, I can add 11 to 11, Jessica. Like if you go to first grade when you're 5 or 6, right? Then you're in 5th or 6th grade when you're 11, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So yeah, I was in Stowe because I went to Woodland Elementary School in Stowe. So, yeah, that's where I was in 1993. But let's go back to 1993 and see. We're going to see what the future holds for us, Scott. Are you ready to see this?
I don't know.
Jessica,
I may have some kind of flashback.
So we're gonna go back and look at the future. So share one of those videos, Jessica. No, one of the AT&T videos. It's hard to find good help who pays attention, Scott. I can say that because she can't reach me over here right during the show to like.
Have you ever borrowed a book from thousands of miles away? Across the country?
Just ahead, take next step.
Without stopping for directions?
Route 101.
Or sent someone a fax? From the beach? You will. And the company that'll bring it to you, AT&T.
All right, so Scott, have you ever sent a fax from the beach?
Happy.
I have not. I have not.
I would like to say you will. However, that might not happen, I think, in the future.
Yeah, if we were still faxing, we might.
It is interesting that to look back at 1993, and you'll see this theme. I have 2 more commercials from AT&T. But you'll see this theme as they talk about it, and like you look at the little nuance of like they were right in their predictions, but wrong in some of the details, which is how like everything you hear come out of my mouth will be the same thing, right? Like I'm not going to be right all the time, period. I'm going to be right some of the time, but the times where I'm right, I'm never going to get the details correct, right? But like the sending the fax from the fax machine, well, they didn't know it was going to be an email, right? Or a text message or a WhatsApp or a Google Meet or whatever else. So
or the navigation, the GPS, it's like GPS was not being used then.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched the movie you wanted to, the minute you wanted to? Learn special things.
That's all taken from jazz.
Know any questions? From faraway places.
Oakland?
So where did jazz come from?
Good question. Or tucked your baby in. From a phone booth. You will. And the company that'll bring it to you, AT&T.
Amazon CEO.
You will tuck your baby in from a phone booth. Have you ever done that, Scott?
I have not. I have not done that either. But
close, right?
But close, yeah.
It's interesting how they can't quite get there, right? And it's not AT&T's fault because they accurately predicted a lot of this stuff, right? But I think it's the same thing as the Wright brothers when they first launched their plane. They could never envision business using this in a 747 to fly coast to coast around the world, right? They just couldn't see that, but they could see the future of flight to a certain extent, right?
Right.
And so it's all in the details. Like obviously that happens. It just doesn't happen from a phone booth, right? Now we can learn things on demand through ChatGPT and through Google and all those places. Now it's not asking questions, but honestly, like that part could come true. Like you could have an AI tutor that you could ask questions for that's teaching you lessons in real time on a television screen or a laptop. That part could come true still. So we got one more, right? Go ahead, go for it.
Have you ever had a classmate
You have a bike?
who's thousands of miles away?
Yes.
Conducted business in a language you don't understand? Or kept an eye on your home when you're not at home? You will. And the company that'll bring it to you, AT&T.
I don't know if you could hear that. Could you hear that? The volume was super low on that one.
I can hear it. But
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
They that was the video on YouTube. I tried to jack it up on my computer, but I don't think that helps when I'm playing it online.
But yeah. Smart home.
Mm-hmm. Well, not even a smart home, just checking on your home while you're away for your remote security cameras, right? Doing business in a language that you don't speak.
Automatic translations. Yeah.
So, like, I think there was a large number of people back then when they saw these commercials in 1993, like, yeah, right, that's never going to happen. That's crazy. There's no way. But yet, a couple years later, a lot of the stuff is there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think it's interesting as we do these exercises, and some of the stuff is going to, for those of you who are in my camp, are it's going to be like, of course that's going to happen. Some of you who are in the middle are going to be like, maybe that could happen, maybe they're not. Most people are on the side of like, I don't like change. I don't want anything to do with change. Change is going to take a while. Nobody wants to change, and that's human normal behavior. And that's why that's the biggest group of people. Not most people aren't broken like me and like change. So, but that big group like is always they're the people who are like, I'm always going to have my BlackBerry, right? I'm never going to need a phone outside of my house. All those people. It's not that they're opposed to it. It's just they literally can't see how they can't connect the dots, right? Or they don't want to.
Right.
One of the two, right? And that's not a criticism. It's just the way human psychology works, I think.
Sure. I mean, I was there in the days when people scoffed at the idea of people having their own personal computer. Like that, people literally laughed about it. Like, no, it's going to go the way of what they say, like the food processor. Food processors are back too, by the way. But it was kind of like at that time, food processors came out and then no one had them anymore.
I had a food processor. Where did food processors go?
They went away for a while. They really did. Yep. But yeah, they scoffed at the idea of people having their own personal computer. And it's like, why do you need this? Who needs this? It's a useless tool. It's a toy. That's what it was called.
Yeah.
It
was back then.
And it kind of was. But who brought it to everybody's living room was AOL with the free CDs, and then everybody got in chat rooms. So, but yeah, at that time, I mean, things within just a few years, everybody did have a PC, and they started to use them for more than just, chats on AOL. It was in the workplace. It was unbelievable how it revolutionized how we worked.
Yeah, I mean, if you look back at history and you look at some of these technological revolutions that I think even us now in this future world, looking back on 1993 or looking back on the PC era of personal computing, like you're talking about, even us now, like our memories are obviously different than each other's memories. But I think we almost construct this like, well, I'm looking back on that time and it took so long for that transition to happen, but it was a whole lot quicker if you actually were in that. Like if you go back and study the actual timeline, it ends up being a whole lot quicker. I can't remember the podcast I was watching, and I wish I could credit them, but they showed a picture and I'm going to butcher the dates again, right? But it's pretty close. Like 22 or 19 or something like that of a New York City street full of horses and carriages. And 1928, 10 years later, it's all automobiles and not a horse in sight. Right? That's quick. That's quick. In less than 10 years, all the horses are gone. And so like there's this sense that like even especially as far back then, like it just takes this long for technology to make this shift. And when we're living in the moment, like this is some of the most exciting time to be alive that I can imagine, right? And everybody says that as they're going through their technological revolution, but like I think we're really in a special place here. And I'm not saying it's all going to be good or bad, or I'm going to love all of it or not love all of it, but like this is a fascinating time to be going through the capabilities and changes and things that society has in store for us. I think. What do you think, Scott?
Oh, definitely. It's one of those things where you if you embrace it and you really look at the whole idea of what is available to you and how it's changing and how it can benefit you, it's amazing. It really is amazing. I mean, it's like, and it's happening so fast.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's look at it. And I think the fast part is what escapes a lot of people, right? I think, going back to Emad and his podcast, one of the things that he was talking about, and we'll get into how this impacts the campground of the future, if he was correct. But one of the things he said is like in less than 2 years, companies, and we're already seeing this a lot of places, and I know that this is going to upset people when it comes out of my mouth. I'm not saying this is the future I want, right? But it is going to happen. in less than 2 years, like most companies are just, if they need a worker that touches a keyboard, mouse, or video in some way, they're just going to be able to go hire an AI agent from a GPU to do whatever, anything that touches or operates a keyboard, mouse, or video. And you're already starting to see this. And these companies are deploying billions of dollars into this stuff. Salesforce has a big program called Agent Force that is in its second year now, that is entirely geared toward these things. And, the more I talk to people and the more they push back on this idea of like, well, people don't change. It's going to take 5, 10, 15, 20 years for this stuff to actually make it into society. The first rebuttal that we've talked about on the show before is well, Google and Apple and everybody, well, again, I keep saying Apple because they're a tech company, but like, I just get out of Apple stock. I'm not a financial advisor. Get out of Apple stock as fast as you can. They don't know what they're doing with AI. Okay. Google, Meta, OpenAI. Those three big players, or more, Claude, Anthropic, et cetera, but those three big players in the United States and Canada. There's a couple good AI companies up here, Cohere and stuff like that. Those people are spending.
Google, Alphabet, Microsoft, OpenAI, NVIDIA, Meta,
Hey Google,
Facebook,
I didn't talk to you, so please stop talking. I actually hit the stop button and it's still talking to me on my phone.
It still wants the last word.
It's always wants the last word. And it's always long-winded too. So, but stuff like that will get better. And like, I think there's this thing that people don't seem to understand, that like the companies that you're talking about, OpenAI is private, but Google and Meta, for example, are publicly traded companies. They are reporting every quarter, every 3 months to their investors and saying, this is what I'm spending money on. This is why I'm spending money. This is how much I earned on that money. These are my margins. And then people are investing in that stock based on that data, which means that just like almost every publicly traded company out there, they're obviously beholden to their investors, but they are on a 3-month clock to produce, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is no chance that these companies are, as you watch them, investing hundreds of billions of dollars into AI technology and data centers and all this stuff in a 20-year play, because their investors will not let them do it. So they know something that you don't. And the question is are you arrogant enough to think that you know better than the company with 50, how many employees does Google have? 140,000 employees, something like that, that's been around for 20 years, has led the technology revolution, and is investing literally $95 billion this year alone into AI and AI data centers. I don't know that I would claim to be arrogant enough to say I know better. Would you?
No, not at all. I wouldn't even pretend.
So they know something that we don't, right? Let's look at. I want to look at the scope of this for a second. Will you indulge me, Scott?
Sure.
I want to look at the scope of this for a second. There's a video. Again, Peter Diamandis, I'm going to play here in a second. His show called Moonshots. It's a really good show to watch if you want to follow some of the AI stuff. But it's like, if they're long shows, you have to digest them. We're just going to play a clip from this thing real quick.
Let's take a second and give a quick overview on what's going on, because it is everybody's trying to outdo everybody else. Here we go, taking a quick look. First off, of course, Elon with XAI and his GPU targets. Here are the numbers. Colossus launched in July of 24. Hard to believe it was a year ago, right? With 100,000 H100s. They doubled it to 200,000 in 3 months. Colossus 2 is getting ready for launch with the equivalent, with 550 GB2s, but the equivalent of 5.5 million H100s. And his goal is 50.
Okay. For those of you guys who don't know, an H100 is an NVIDIA GPU chip. And I think it's an H100, but like each one of these chips basically costs each one of these, and he has the equivalent of 5.5 million. Each one of these costs $60,000 a piece. Okay? So a lot of money. Keep going.
50 million H100 equivalents within the next 5 years. I mean, that's insane. Alex, what do you think about this?
It's so incredible. If my arithmetic is correct, in today's GPU dollars, 50 million H100s is the trillion-dollar AI supercluster that people have talked about for the past few years. Obviously, there will be some deflation of cost, so maybe it's only a few $100 billion instead of $1 trillion. But in today's GPU dollars, that's a substantial fraction of the U.S. economy.
For sure.
Alex and I had a meeting earlier this week with our new Secretary of Commerce coming into the state of Mass. And he put together a brilliant 18-point plan on how to be a dominant state or a successful state in the world of AI. I suspect none of it resonated, but it will. After these numbers come true on this chart, it'll all come back to Alex. But yeah, I did a little bit of research on this, though, that each of those GB200s has actually 2 Blackwell GPUs. So you'll see the production of GPUs, but you have to divide by 2 because each one of these super chips uses 2 of them. There's an acute shortage. Like everybody's going to want those chips. They already do, which is why NVIDIA is worth so much. But when you see all these numbers of GPUs, remember if you're using the Blackwells, the GB200s, you have to divide by 2. And so the 10x performance improvement that you see on this chart between H100 and GB200. It's a little bit overstated. Actually, it's about a 4x raw compute performance increase. But then the NVLink networking is much, much more efficient. And there's a bunch of other innovations. So you do effectively get 10x the AI out the other side.
So the question is, how much of this is the battle between Elon and Sam that's driving this? So check this out. Of course, OpenAI's goals have to outdo Elon's goals, and this is a tweet from Sam Altman. It says, "We will cross well over 1 million GPUs brought online by the end of this year." Amazing. Very proud of the team, but now they need to figure out how to get to 100x that. So I mean, it's an extraordinary battle.
So that's 100x that. So for 100x. Again, if you guys don't know, like Sam and Elon do not like each other at all. They both started technically OpenAI. Sam, obviously the leader now. Elon had a falling out a long time ago, long before ChatGPT came out. But they are not, let's call it, the best of friends right now. At least that's how the public perception of all of it is. And so they are constantly like, and generally would be one-upping each other at different companies anyway. But so Elon at a 50x wants 50 million. Now Sam 1 million times 100 wants 100 million at his, right? So 100 million is a $2 trillion investment in today's dollars. Let's keep going.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I think a lot of, to the extent that much of the compute demand is inference demand, call it a half to 2/3 of compute ends up being allocated to inference as opposed to training or pre-training. A lot of this potentially is going to be unlocked by new use cases. The CapEx requirements, the OpEx requirements are ultimately going to be driven by new use cases. If we can solve all the world's problems, if we can cure every disease, that's going to unlock an enormous CapEx budget that can then be invested back into these GPUs. So I think the elephant in the room here is, can we solve math, solve physics, solve medicine, and through those solutions, reinvest the gains as directly into these compute budgets to unlock millions of GPUs and hundreds of basis points of GDP being allocated to GPUs.
And I want to dive into that with you, Alex, a little bit later. What does it mean to solve math, solve physics, solve medicine? Because I think this is part of the extraordinary future that I wake up just vibrating about every morning, and which most people don't yet fully grok. But let's get into that in a little bit. So again, it's xAI versus OpenAI. But Meta is not going to be left out of the picture. I love this. So Meta is building a Manhattan-sized data center. So Prometheus is a multi-gigawatt data center. You know, it's interesting that we're now measuring data centers in terms of power instead of necessarily chips. right? So it's like a 1 to 5 gigawatt data center. Even more interesting, to get to speed, they're deploying in hurricane-proof tents, which is insane. And then they've got their plans for their second mega cluster, Hyperion, in the works.
Okay,
Dave, what do you make of all this?
So like that's enough for the video, I think. But like, so this is what we're talking about, right? Like there's these I mean, I don't know. I told you this, I think, yesterday, Scott. I don't know if such a thing really exists as a hurricane-proof tent. But the idea here is again, like normal construction of 3 to 5 years on this stuff doesn't work for these people. So they're trying to do everything they can. And in this case, like literally building a data center without walls and then building walls around it later is what they're talking about to get this stuff up fast enough. And Meta's building data centers in multiple states, and so is XAI, and so is OpenAI, and like they're just getting started, but they're all over the place, and the amount of power that these things are going to consume is insane. There is not enough power in the entire United States to go around, and we're just getting started. And China has been going. I should look up the stat here, right? Like I'll look up the stat before I cite it wrong. What is the rate China is building power capacity versus the USA? So like China's been going up and to the right for a number of years, right? They've been building huge hydroelectric dams and projects, and most of it's been geared toward AI. But they're even going to run out of power probably. The United States has been relatively flat for the better part of the last couple decades, I think. I'll get the exact stats here in a second, but it was a fascinating stat I saw one time about just the amount of power that China is bringing online. And O3 is like, do you ever get to the point with AI where you're like, just it's thinking too long?
Yeah.
I feel like I keep getting like, it would have taken me a couple hours to do this research like 4 or 5 years ago. And now I'm impatient and like, I don't know, whatever. It's just not even going. But like now I'm getting frustrated. But like it was something. How fast are the two countries adding power capacity? Okay, 2024 full year. China, all sources, 373 gigawatts in new renewable capacity, 270 gigawatts of solar, plus almost 80 gigawatts in wind, and 13.8 gigawatts of hydro, plus 1.9 gigawatts of biomass. Coal approvals are 66 gigawatts, but most of that will enter service in 2026 or 2027. In the United States, in all sources, 62 gigawatts in total utility scale capacity scheduled to enter service. So a 6-to-1 ratio. China is outbuilding us in power supply. And maybe some of that changes. Like we've heard, and I haven't dived into the details yet, like the man or don't like the man, Donald Trump has his AI action plan, which I generally support. The plan, I like some of the stuff that Trump does. I don't. We're not going to get into politics, right? But I like the plan. But it basically it strips a bunch of regulation away, almost all regulation away from the AI industry, which maybe we look back on in a few years and we're like, that probably wasn't a great idea. But we're like, as I've described on the show before, we are like it or not, the United States is in a global race with China to win the AI war. China's not slowing down, and we're already behind China by a factor of 6-to-1 in power, let alone everything else. So the only way to do this is to get rid of all the regulations and go build as fast as you can, right? And there's going to be consequences that come along with that, but there's going to be hopefully a lot of good things that come along with that too. And I don't know how this future looks like, but like everybody's all in on this, and the people that are sitting at home, who and that's not all people, right? A significant number of people, and the stark way to look at this, and this surprised me, Scott. The data came out the other day. I said this on a couple of my social media videos. December 2024, ChatGPT had 1 billion prompts a day from people globally. In 8 months later, in July of 2025, so this month, they had 2.5 billion prompts a day. Okay. which is almost to 150% increase, right? Roughly. So massive growth. For context, Google has 14 billion searches a day, so still more. But obviously, like if you can 150x growth in 8 months, like you're getting a lot more traction on ChatGPT, and we don't know how much of those are searches or not searches, right? But it's attention. So if you're growing that fast, it's crazy. But now take a wild guess, Scott. Of those 2.5 billion prompts a day, how many do you think come from the United States? The self-designated global leader in artificial intelligence.
I'm going to say 35%.
300 million. 300 million. I don't know what percentage that is. If you have a calculator in front of you, feel free to go through it. Less than 35%. 300 million out of 2.5 billion prompts. All that tells me is that most of the people you know who are sitting around in office jobs and in the United States, generally speaking, are not doing jack shit with AI. That's a big problem for you if you are in keyboard, mouse, video land. That's a massive problem for you. And you can say that change is slow, and you can make the excuses that you want, and you can say that, and you might end up being right. Like that, certainly there's a small chance that you are correct. But if you look back historically, from AT&T's commercial to the personal laptop to the BlackBerry to the iPhone to all the things that have happened throughout history, basically everything in history, almost everything says you're very, very wrong. And this is moving much, much faster. And they've never, I don't think that there's been anything this big, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, I don't think there's ever been an action plan involving a United States president with this much spending since Eisenhower, maybe? That I can remember. Like, and if the US president, like him or not, is all in on this, and so is the whole government, and there's all these massive companies spending hundreds of billions of dollars, and they're securing power plants and nuclear reactors and reopening 3 Mile. Do you think that there's something going on that maybe you should perhaps start to just fiddle with the thing called ChatGPT that they're all talking about? Maybe I'm preaching too much now, Scott. But I'm trying, like I'm literally trying, I'm begging and I'm pleading all of you, like, please, you are going to be replaced by somebody who knows how to use AI. And all you're doing by not learning AI at the ratio that we're talking about in the United States at 300 billion versus the rest of the world 2.5 billion, the only thing you're doing is making it much easier on the companies in the United States to downsize even more. Because in wherever, and I didn't look at the breakdown of the countries for everything else, I don't think they provided in the article, but it's a whole lot harder to cut a bunch of people when you're trying to choose between Sally, Mark, and Jeff who all know AI. Right? But if it's just Sally who knows AI, that's a very easy math question. Like you all have had 2.5 years, and there's lots of excuses about how I don't have time, I don't have the knowledge, I don't have whatever. But it's super easy to go to ChatGPT and say, I don't have the time, I don't have the knowledge, how do I do it? All of us have time, including me, right? Like I could make even more time for the AI and the robotics and the things, right? But I've chosen to, like, generally speaking, quit at 6, 7 o'clock at night to go relax outside and sit in my hot tub and decompress, you know? And I didn't always do that, but I've chosen to do that. I take 1 day off a week now. But there's time. Like I could take away that hot tub time. Do I want to? No. But I could. And if my job was threatened by it, and the news media is reporting this, and the company and all the things we've talked about, like, Scott, are you back me up here, man? Am I crazy?
No.
Like, I logically can't get to the place where most people are, where they're like, it's fine. I will just continue on my normal path, and there's nothing for me to worry about. I can't logically get myself to that point. How do most people get there, Scott? Do you know?
No, I wish I did. If I did, I'd write a book, and maybe I'll have AI write a book about it. How do we get there?
Like, I
there
don't.
from
I
here.
just like it sounds like I'm being preachy, and I am, but like it's coming from a place of like I actually care about all of you. I do. I don't want anybody to lose their job. I don't want this future. I do want the future to happen. I don't want the future to happen where people lose their jobs and get to a point where they are unable to pay their bills and take care of their families. And that's a terrible future. I'm not advocating for any of that, but it's going to happen. And the only way that you can protect yourself is by beginning to learn this technology. And it is overwhelming and it is a lot to learn. But also at the same time, it's never been easier to learn something in your life because the technology itself will teach you about the technology in a 5th grade language or a 7th grade language or a 10th grade language or whatever you want to learn, right? In Egyptian, Spanish, French, Canadian, whatever you want to learn it in, it's there available to you. So I just think that, going beyond that, we talked about the campground of the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how this is going to impact outdoor hospitality. You and I had a conversation about electricity the other day. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. But like generally speaking, I ran some of this through AI, and because I always do this, I use the Socratic method, and I say like, is Brian crazy? Give me the counterpoint to the argument. Let me see the perspective through someone else's eyes, so I'm not in my little bubble. And I still am. Everybody is, right? But I try to get out of it as much as I can and see the other side and the point of view and things like that. And so I run these things through AI and I say like, don't use the research. Don't go out on the internet because nobody's really writing about this. Use your own unbiased internal brain, not what I'm saying, not what anybody else is saying. And tell me what you think is going to happen to the future of campgrounds and outdoor hospitality. If the prediction of like 2 years is right, that the companies are going to hire GPUs and there's going to be a bunch of layoffs, and we're already seeing the layoffs, right? From the tech companies. And like one of the things that came back with was electricity. Now, do you know what the average park by chance pays in kilowatts, Scott, right now?
I don't off the top of my head.
I know there was a campground in Virginia I was talking to yesterday or the day before that said, I think 20 cents a kilowatt. Like up here, I pay 8 cents a kilowatt. I'm locked into a really good deal it's probably going to expire like next month. I don't even know it. 8 cents a kilowatt, but that's Canadian. So really it's probably like 5 or 6 cents a kilowatt, which I'm probably going to like never see again in my life. So I should cherish it while I can. But what do you pay a kilowatt, Scott? Do you know?
We pay a pretty high rate, and I don't remember what it is again off the top of my head, but it's pretty high. It's probably like 25 to 30 cents.
Okay. So if you look at, and so this is an example that came out of the AI, right? As a use case. Pharmaceutical company says, and they didn't give me this much detail, so I'm filling in some of the gaps here, right? Pharmaceutical company says, I can cure Alzheimer's. And I can do so within 10 years, and I can spend $5 billion to do it the traditional route with research and development and drug trials and all the processes that take so long to develop and bring a drug to market. But eventually when I get there, curing Alzheimer's has got to be at least $1 trillion drug, right, Scott?
Oh, at least.
At least. Yeah. Or the pharmaceutical company executives say to themselves, well, if we just gave this problem to the AI agents in the data center that we built, then we could do this in 6 months and save 4 of that $5 billion doing so. We just need a little bit more power, or a lot more, for our data centers to run all that stuff. So let's go to the power company and say, hey, power company, I'd like to give you $1 a kilowatt for your power. And just keep bidding it up and up and up and up and up. And power's in an auction, right? It's the free market regulated still. So government at some point probably steps in. But like if a pharmaceutical company is willing to give $1 a kilowatt, can campgrounds afford that? Like we're already complaining quite a bit about high electricity, right? Like, what do you think, Scott? You've run a lot of consulting and analysis and reports and data and study. Can campgrounds afford $1 a kilowatt? Can they afford 50 cents a kilowatt?
Well, no, because the margins right now are, not that great, and a typical campground, it requires a decent amount of energy. You have full hookups, everything, all the lighting. It's a substantial cost.
Yeah, And so this is one use case. But remember, like, we're just getting started here. They're dumping hundreds of billions of dollars into data centers. All those data centers need power. There's no power that's coming online fast enough in the United States to come anywhere close to this demand. We just covered it. So it's going to come from somewhere, and it's going to come in the form of a bidding war. So independently and objectively outside of Brian's crazy AI brain, Scott, how likely is this to happen?
The scenario that you presented is
power pricing increasing by a factor of at least 2x in the next couple years.
If you look at that, I'd say that scenario is very likely. We are right now, we can't keep up. Even at the grid is aged and it is inefficient. You see in states like Texas where their power grid can't handle a heat wave right now. In order to meet those demands of the industry, on top of residential and other commercial interests, it by definition is going to go way up. It's just going to, because we're going to have to build so much infrastructure to get there that it's going to. That's how it's going to be, and we will probably pay differential rates based on times of usage. Maybe there's times of the day we don't have any power at all. It's going to change a lot. It's a big issue.
So how long do you think before? Well, never mind. Not the how long, because that's subjective. How do you think a campground operates under such a scenario?
They're going to probably have to cut back on the number of like full hookup sites they offer, the number of accommodations that are fully hooked up, in terms of electricity and so on. They're going to have to reinvest in things like alternative lighting, low use, light bulbs and other, products, appliances, and so on throughout the campground. They'll probably cut back on things like laundry services, or they'll charge a lot more for it. The bottom line is a lot of the costs will be pushed back on to the guest.
Okay. So then let me ask you this. How are you going to push all those costs back onto the guest when most of your guests are laid off?
Well, that's where you start to look at a whole different model of how people operate.
Okay. Do you have any ideas?
And this is part of what
I'm trying to give it to you, man.
Week. So
take it and run with it.
Here's what I looked at, and I think about this a lot based on our conversations and just kind of keeping your ear to the ground and just by a frame of reference as I move forward with this. Some of this stuff is already happening, and that is, I call it. What I did is I went and I asked chat about is there a space out here, and is there a reason why like the Luddites might emerge?
Sorry, my beer just exploded.
Okay. Oh,
go ahead.
Someone pick it up on you.
Yeah.
And the answer came back that there's, in all likelihood, based on a lot of these factors, increased costs and everything, that there will be, and I call it the kind of the Luddite phenomenon, but the attraction of campgrounds and locations that are 100% off grid, that are much more rustic, and that have a business model that is focused around the fact that we don't have a lot of services and amenities. If you want those, you're going to have to. A lot of these places aren't going to even have them. I also think that one of the things that came back too that was really interesting was that at some of these parks that don't have power, that there's no, very little use and access to technology at all, that the guests will work at the park, that they will arrive and they'll help, they'll plant trees, they'll do landscaping, they'll help help pay for their stay by working.
Which we've seen some parks do, right? Like there are some parks that have those volunteer days in the beginning of the season that are wildly successful.
They are. And so this is kind of some of the stuff that came back. So you can go there and you can stay, but you have to work. And also the appeal of that too is if people are not working, there is a desire to do something like that, to do something physical and productive. So there's
to have a purpose.
Yeah, exactly. And that some campgrounds will flourish, that there will be a movement toward this approach where things are not, there's no automation, there's no electronics, there's no hookups, there's none of that. It's a really back to basics experience that people completely disconnect when they get there. And that's the approach is it's rustic, it's you may work, and it's going to really and truly be back to nature.
But what will that line be, right? This is what my question is what is that line going to be? And you can sit here and guess all day, right? Like it could be 50-50. I've said before, I don't know if I said in the show, but I've said maybe to you on a call or to other people, like I think that line originally is like 70-30. I think 70% of people are analog and 30% are like all in on AI.
Right.
The tech and adapting nature with it and everything else. I think that quickly blurs over time. I think it goes to 50-50. And I think we end up settling somewhere between, in the next 10 to 20 years, I think we settle somewhere between 20 and 30% of people who remain analog. How many of those people and how their behavior is overall, are they peaceful or are they like mark of the beast, whatever that the AI is doing to us, right? I think entirely depends on how religion as a whole perceives and preaches and talks about AI. I don't know how that's going to happen. I'm not saying it's good or bad, whatever they decide, right? It's not for me to decide. But it's going to depend that. And then I think like long term, there's always going to be those 5 to 10% of people who are similar to the Mennonites, right?
Right.
Aren't necessarily, nobody's saying there's right or wrong on either side of this, just that there is going to be different sides of it.
Absolutely. And right now, there are camps that both adults and kids can go to that are digital detox camps where you go and you have no technology, no cell phone, nothing. You completely disconnect for your time there, your stay. That's happening as we speak. I know of a campground here in Maine that is currently doing essentially the Luddite off-grid campground right now. Their grand opening is this weekend. In fact, it's a small operation. This woman decided to do this, but she has a waiting list of people to stay there. She's already booked for the rest of the year. It's just it's a completely rustic, again, off grid, nothing.
How much is she charging compared to like a regular campground?
Her rates are less. She doesn't charge much. But again, she is offering the opportunity to do some volunteer work. She still has a lot of work there.
But are her margins, I'm sorry, how many interrupting? I'm just curious. Are her margins the same? Because she doesn't have all the overhead of building all the electrical lines and all the, right?
I would say it's got to be pretty close because she doesn't have that. All she has, she purchased the land and pays her taxes every year, and that's. Other than that, like what's her outlay of expenses? Ongoing maintenance. Obviously, you have to keep up on, keeping it clean and all that. But if you have campers coming there to stay and helping you out with it, it's also going to help pay for itself.
It'll be interesting to see, because there will be then campgrounds like you're talking about. I agree with you. There will be campgrounds that shift that focus or build from the ground up with that intention. There will be more campgrounds who will pivot to the all in on AI tech experiences, illuminating giving special binoculars so you can identify the stars in the sky, like drones delivering pizza there. And there will be a group of people who will be like all in on that, and they'll pay a lot of money for it. Then I think, again, as we're talking about with everything, like there's this huge block of people, let's call it 70 to 80% of the world, of the RV park campground world, who are just not going to do anything and will try to go after everybody, which is not going to work in such a polarized world, right?
Right. Correct.
It will for a couple years. So what happens to those people?
They're going to have to make some tough decisions. They will probably decrease the what they do, the number of trips they take in a year, especially if they aren't really working. You're going to it's going to be very, very limited.
Well,
And
I mean the campgrounds that aren't the campgrounds that don't choose one way or another.
I think they're going to struggle. They would have to be financially prepared to have to ride out probably a few years of pretty low usage until they kind of figure out their niche and where they can kind of fit and adjust in that climate. I think that they would definitely need to come up with a plan and figure out exactly where they fit and how they're going to accommodate this new world we're in.
Well, so let's say this in AI. I had some AI do predicting, but let's say this is 5 years away before we get to the split of society, right? I think it's maybe sooner. I think it's in some places it's already happening, not in the RV world necessarily, right? But there's strong opinions on both sides of the aisle about AI, right? Let's say it's 5 years till we get there. In the meantime, electricity prices skyrocket next year and 2 years from now. Continue to skyrocket, go upward because of the bidding war that's happening for data centers and power and everything else. How does a campground protect themselves against that, or can they?
Yeah, boy, that's that's a tough question. I honestly,
I mean, can they do solar? Can they do solar? Can they do wind? Can they do renewables?
They should probably, if they're not doing it now, they should really think about how they can make that adjustment. That
like now, right? Because if you wait and you're like, oh shit, power's going up 4 times next year, surprise. Guess what there's going to be a run on? Solar panels. And guess what's going to increase in price? Solar panels and batteries. And so go buy them now. Affiliate link in the comment for me and Scott. No, I'm just kidding. So
No. Even if you can find those at that point, once it hits that point, demand is going to be so high. It won't be just the price that's outrageous. You just won't be able to find them. It's going to be almost impossible to find because people are going to be looking for it at the residential level. The demand is going to be through the roof. So the time is now. The time was a while ago, but it's just like what you always say about AI. If you haven't done it already, today's the day you start at least exploring what you can provide, because it's just a good move regardless. When you consider that this is where we're going, where we're
going though, right? Like this is the data guy talking to you, not the cuckoo AI guy over here on my side of the camera. Is where we're going, right?
Yeah. It is where we're going. And it also, I mean, just on a practical level, it's going to be what consumers are going to demand too. They want more of this. You have a younger generation now that's coming through that they're going to seek locations that have this type of infrastructure, aside from all the other practical issues that are going to be at play here. It's a necessary step. Start now.
Here's what interests me. Of the audience that is in your camp of I want to be disconnected or a Luddite or whatever, right? Does that number decrease when power also goes up for residential homes and they're either laid off or downsized in their hours or not making as much money, or a family member loses their job or whatever else, or even they all have jobs and power just goes up anyway? Does it get to a point where they're like, well, my vacation, I want to have the freedom to turn my air conditioner on all night? Like, I know that sounds bizarre in the United States and Canada to not be able to afford to have your but there are lots of places in the world where people do this. There are lots of places. There are lots of people in the United States that do this too.
Oh, I guarantee you,
Yeah.
we're going through a heat wave in Maine where it's been, 90 plus every day for the last few days, and with our utility rates the way they are, I guarantee you there are a lot of people who are making these decisions right now, and they're sitting sweating in their, I'm fortunate enough I have an air conditioner here for myself, but I'll pay for that. My utility bills per month have doubled in the last 18 months. We're looking at, rates that it keeps sneaking up on you. The rate keeps increasing, and this is without all the stuff that you talked about earlier. So we're already
natural inflation.
Yep.
By the way, there's a 50% tariff on copper today, globally. Good thing power lines don't use copper in any capacity.
Right. Nothing electronic needs.
Wouldn't want anything to be expensive. All right, where do we want to go from here? You got anything else you need research on you want to talk about, or should we just jump into?
I guess honestly, with the only other thing I really kind of liked about, when in doing this was the idea of kind of the idea of campgrounds themselves being like regenerative themselves, reforestation, rain gardens, pollinator corridors, and stuff like that. I think this kind of stuff is going to, and I think it plays into everything that we've talked about already. That there's going to be a lot of places that this is going to be the future. The future is, rewilded sites, places that are more rustic part of the ecosystem, and that are not, because all those things are going to make your campground less needy of power too. The cooling effects of having the appropriate vegetation, natural native vegetation, all these things. It actually helps you.
I think the solar is the key. I would have to run the numbers. You want to run the numbers in real time? Let's run the numbers in real time. Let's do this, Scott. Let's look at this. They're not saying this is the most efficient way, right? So I just am curious. Let's share my screen real quick, Jessica. There's this company that we were looking at, EcoFlow. We'll go to ecoflow.com. Hopefully it won't kick me to the Canadian version. All right, us.ecoflow, because I just want to give it in US dollars. Nope, I want to stay. I want to go. All right, so Delta, we were looking at these Delta Pro series as home backups, cabin backups, right? So these Delta Pro Ultras. And if we had one of these, I don't know what members only means. We'll just say like Delta Pro Ultra, 1x inverter and 1x battery, 6 kilowatt hours for 1 to 3 days of whole home power. That's enough to run a cabin, right?
Yep.
So you're at $4,400 to run the cabin. Then you would need, and probably a moderate size, almost any kind of cabin you'd have, right? Like you've got enough, and you just add another battery if you need another battery. Here's 2 batteries is $7,000, right? So just stack on top of each other. So let's just say that you need this worst case to run your camera or your cabin. $7,000 US. And are they on sale right now? 30% rebates through the residential clean energy credit. I don't know, whatever. All right, so then you go to your solar panels, right? And let's look at the specs here. So this is, let's see, does it have 600 kilowatts, 5.6 to 16.8 solar, 1 hour of solar for 1 day of use at 16 kilowatts, obviously, right? So you get a couple hours of solar. So if you're running 6 kilowatts a day, you need 6 kilowatts of input power, which means you, like what's the factor of how much solar you need? Let's say you get 5 to 6 hours of sun a day, if they're on both sides of a peak of a cabin, like generally speaking. So how many kilowatts of solar would you need then? Like, would you need the full 16 or 15 kilowatts of solar panel or solar to get like 555? Does that make sense? If the battery's 6 and you want to fully charge the battery in under a day, and you only get a third of the sunlight a day out of 24 hours, I don't know, whatever. Like, but 5.6 to 6, somebody do the math. Somebody can do the math for me. But anyway, so you go to mountable solar panels here. So we're at $7,000. Go to my mountable solar panels. You're not going to let me click there. All right. 400 watt rigid. So we've got 899 for one of them, even though there's two in the picture. Oh no, 2 times. So 2 times 400 watt would be 800 watts. 4 times would be 1300. 8 times would be 2500. So that would be 8 times 4 would be 3.2 gigawatts, right?
Mm-hmm.
That'd probably be enough. Like, they're not using that much power in their cabin, right?
No.
So basically you're at $10,000 to outfit a cabin with solar panels on the roof and a battery charger that would last for rainy days, right? And would store energy and work overnight and all. So $10,000 ish. I don't know what do you think a cabin costs in energy a month when they're running their air conditioners and all that stuff? I don't know.
Probably 150 for a small cabin.
A month?
Yeah.
For all those people in and out of it?
For one cabin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not going to be that.
Yeah. So a significant upcharge. So it would take years to pay for itself, right? But also, like, you future-proof yourself for quite a bit. So I don't know. Like, and well, I will say, by the way, there's a new one big beautiful bill that lets you depreciate things instantly off of your taxes. So these capital investments, I'm not an accountant, not giving you financial advice, but might be instantly tax deductible. So I don't know. Does this, like, obviously it's way more. Does this make sense for an owner to consider, given that we are both saying like where things might go? Probably will go. Just hedging my bet.
I mean, if your accommodation is a higher end luxury type cabin, I think it would pay for itself over time, because your guests are going to pay a premium already to stay there, and so that extra investment, and you'll probably get some economies of scale if you purchase multiples of anything. So if you're looking to operate like a smaller level, say a rustic cabin with, just maybe looking at a few lights and maybe one little air conditioning unit or something, your costs are going to be substantially less. Is it worth it there? Maybe. But I do think if you're offering a higher end experience accommodation, yeah, you should probably think about it, because the other thing you're going to want is you're definitely going to want to make sure they have electricity. Your guests do when they're there.
Yeah, especially if you're higher end.
Yeah. So in order to do that and know that you have it and you've paid for it, and you're not going to be at the whim of these potentially volatile rates that are coming.
All right, let's move on from electricity for a second. Some of the other cool things, we're going to go back to this campground of the future in a second. But we're talking about the campground of the future too, right? We have been the whole time. Some of the other things the AI spit out was waivers, 2 different types of waivers you might have to sign in the future for insurance. One for human incidents and one for AI robotic incidents. So you have a waiver against bots and drones, and you also have a waiver against human, like what you do now, standard waiver, right?
Mm-hmm.
This seems probabilistic to me, like that would happen, right?
Yeah, I think, we've talked about insurance a little bit on this show in the past, but this is one of those things that absolutely it will happen, And I'll go on record saying that I know enough people who work in the insurance industry to say that this kind of stuff will happen.
Okay. What? One of the other things it was talking about was property taxes. So this is probably another thing we should. You can go back to me, Jessica. This is one of the other things that I think is probably a rabbit hole we could go down. But the AI was predicting and talking about how they may reassess properties, your property value upwards based on your ability to host a data center or GPU compute, like how close you are to a substation, right? Because your land is more valuable. And if they do that, then you could see a large number of campgrounds who are located right near substations just sell their land and stop being a campground, right? Because it's way more valuable to sell to the guy who wants to build the data center than it is to try to run a 40, 50, 60 site park, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then for the rest of them, when the property tax is reassessed upwards, like if you get a 2 to 4 times property tax hike increase, nobody knows what it's going to be, right? But it stands to reason that as like the amount of compute the world is going to need, and we're not even talking about robots yet, guys. Those are coming in a couple years too. And when I say a couple years, single digits here. The only bottleneck is going to be manufacturing, how long they can roll off the line, how long it takes them to roll off the line. And that's going to require even more GPU compute. And all the self-driving cars are going to require more GPU compute. And it's an endless need. So if a campground has their property tax reassessed 2 to 4 times higher than it is today, what does that do to parks?
It puts some of them out of business.
What percentage would you say?
10%.
At 2 or 10% at 4?
What was that question again?
If it's a 2% or a 2%, 2 times increase in property tax, is it 10%? What if it's a 4 times increase?
We're looking at 15%. It's in some places these locations are paying a lot in taxes already.
Yeah.
And that kind of increase is just a knife in the back. You know, it would put many campgrounds out of business.
Is there put my tinfoil hat on for a second. It was already on according to most of our audience, but is there a place here for eminent domain if we need data centers? Locally or nationally?
That, I'd never thought of that. I would say that if it gets to the point to based on what you were talking about earlier, if it gets even close to that, yes, you're gonna see it. You will see it happen. I mean,
for clarity for our audience, finish your thought and then I'll talk.
I was gonna say I've known of eminent domain coming into play for things a lot less critical than power. So like a Walmart. So it happens. It happens, and thus yes, that's the long and short answer of it.
For clarity, I ran this through OpenAI's O3 Pro. Excuse me. Did you know beer makes you burp more?
I did know that.
I just learned. No, I didn't just learn that. But for clarity, we ran this through the O3 Pro model, which is I don't know, you can't call it the $200 a month model now because I think everybody has access to limited use case of it. But the really smart one that thinks for a really, really long time. And ask it to rate the probability that this would happen based on what it knows of the world. Like, think in its own internal brain, unbiased opinion. What do you think the likelihood that this is going to happen? It said the likelihood that it happens in less than 2 years, like EMOD is predicting, is 15%. That's not a small number.
No.
The likelihood that it happens in 3 to 4 years, 50%. The likelihood that it takes its sweet ass time and goes all the way up to 5 years is 35%. Last time I checked, 5 years is not a very long time.
No.
So, like, I just think that this is just moving so fast, guys, that you need to pay attention to this. And this is not all, it sounds like it's doom and gloom, but it's not. It's a slice of like what can happen and how you can take advantage of it or be prepared for it. And that's why we're talking about it. And all the things that we're talking about, maybe we're wrong, probably are wrong, definitely got the details wrong, right? As AT&T did in 1993. But almost all of what we're talking about is just good. Like, let's pretend we're wrong and power never goes up. It's still great to have solar panels. You're not paying for electricity anymore. Right? Like, maybe it takes a couple more years to pay off, but it's not a terrible investment that we're steering you down a wrong path here, right?
Right. To me, regardless, if say these scenarios don't happen, it's still a good investment.
So, yeah, we ran. I mean, it's just it's really interesting. And the other thing, it was predicting. So I ran this scenario and I said, well, what are some of the things that could happen in the outdoor hospitality industry if it does happen in the less than 2 year framework? And you can extrapolate this out to 3 to 4 years, 5 years, whatever. It started with like 2025 to 2026, which is like, let's call it next season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Camping occupancy could fall by greater than 30%. Sorry, camping spending could fall by greater than 30%. While campground occupancy goes through the roof because more people need to camp long term or whatever else, right? Because they can't afford their homes. This is in the scenario of the large job layoff, right? Which, to be clear once again, and you can come back and date this all you want, is going to happen. It might not be next year, but it's for sure going to happen. There will be new jobs created. Yes, there are new jobs being created every day. It's very easy to say I'm an AI company and I like Sam Altman and I'm creating jobs. New jobs are being created because of AI. That's very true. Who's qualified to do all those new jobs? Very few people. And are those jobs being created in a number that outweigh the amount of jobs they're destroying? I don't think so. Not right now. So I just think that you have to look at this stuff objectively. And obviously, I have my own biases, and I'm in my own AI bubble. And there are lots of other perceptions that I should take into account before saying something is or it isn't. So the timetable might be wrong. But this is where we're going. And that doesn't mean it's a dystopian future. This is the other thing, Scott. And like, maybe you back me up on this, maybe you don't. Like, just because you don't have a job long term doesn't mean your life is over. It means the way we think of the whole economy has to change. Because if the robots are doing all the work and AI is doing all the work, that means intelligence to do all the work is way less, which means if we're doing things right, which is a big if, and will be government and local and country specific, but if we are doing things right, the price of goods should drop dramatically because the price of intelligence to make those goods drops dramatically. Likewise, if we are using AI to solve problems like nuclear fusion or to make small nuclear reactors or wind power or the really cool buoys that I saw floating in the ocean, I think in the Netherlands, that generate power, if we're doing smart things like that and using AI to innovate electricity, then the cost of energy comes down too. Not next year. You still have to deal with all the things we just talked about, but 10 years from now, 15 years from now, right? And then it becomes a whole lot cheaper to have all that stuff too, which means that like there's probably a future. Well, there has to be. I choose to believe there will be, Scott, a future of an age of abundance where, and really there already is, like we've just set ourselves up in a way where we're segmenting the rich from the poor, which is a whole other discussion, right? There's enough food to go around if we chose to feed everybody. There's enough money in the world to do that. We just choose to not allocate the capital in that way. But if we look at that future and we say, I want to figure out a system where people can still work, they can be engaged, they can have a purpose, whether that's working at a campground or working at somewhere else, right? So you're not sitting around not doing anything. But maybe the idea of trading your time for a paycheck, which, by the way, has not existed for more than a couple hundred, maybe 1,000 years, right? Like it's a relatively new concept. I don't know what the date is. Is that right, Scott?
I think it's even. I think it's less than that. Typically the barter system was in place, and by the way, I'm on record that the thing in the barter system is a great system.
Oh yeah. So like I think we get to a really good future, but like we just have to get there, and if we don't as a society start talking about this, whether we're in the campground industry or we're in any other industry, if the government and you guys don't start having these conversations among yourselves and don't start trying to figure it out, it's just going to be longer that we go through the ugly part. And nobody wants that. So, campground of the future, what else do we got? We talked about property taxes, robot companions. So, we've talked about humanoid robots on this channel before. I think you missed that episode, Scott. Or was it you and Greg missed that episode? I can't remember. We talked about humanoid robots. We played all those videos about robots. Again, the only bottleneck here is manufacturing. They've solved basically the humanoid body. The software is all there. Like, it's just how fast can they pump them off a manufacturing line now to the equivalent of how fast they change society. This is all in YouTube videos. The things are real. You can go look at them. It's not Brian making up stuff. The humanoid robots are here. So how many years is it before the 85-year-old boomer retiree, who's your typical campground audience, is traveling with a elder care Android V3 that they take everywhere with them, that will provide emergency medical care to them, that will do CPR, that will do right, or call a doctor instantly, or make sure that they're counting their medicine correctly. Or so then, do those robots need a place to charge at the campground? Do they need their own campsite? Do they need, how does that work? They'll certainly need to draw more power to recharge, right? So I don't know if there's a way a campground can really prepare for that, but that was some of the interesting stuff it spit out. It did talk about campgrounds replacing some of the workers with robots, and then it talked about the former workers who used to work at area campgrounds, maybe that's county by county or region by region, state by state, whatever, that them form kind of a co-op together of people who can be on call for emergencies that the robots can't handle, and they start almost their own little company of people who can. So that was a cool idea, I thought, of ways to do it. Did anything else come up in your search?
The idea of kind of adaptable accommodations was one thing that came up, that you can, before you arrive, you can plug in kind of what your preferences are, and your whole experience, your accommodations, everything adapts to you and what your preferences are, which I thought was kind of a cool. It's kind of like a smart, room approach, but with what they call it, like neural adaptive or something like that. I think was the term used.
Yeah, I mean, that can almost already happen. Like, it's like the simplistic version of it is the order an Uber Comfort and say I want the air conditioning on, or the no talking, or the volume at a certain level for the music or whatever. Obviously, that doesn't do it automatically. The driver then prepares it for you, right? Which is a whole nother, that for sure is going to be automatic, right? Like, we're already seeing robo-taxis everywhere, and Waymos, well, everywhere. Not everywhere, but they're coming really, really fast. That's another thing that will change. Like, how do you let those cars in and out of your campground, does the RV in 10 years drive itself? Like 30%, I think 30% of the RVs in 10, 15 years drive themselves to your campgrounds. That'll be interesting.
It will be. By the way, just to kind of touch base on that, the robot issue at a campground, one of my counterpoints to that is not really anti-robot, but it's pro-robot. And that is, with so many campgrounds and so many, let's just face it, the hospitality industry right now is suffering from a crisis of labor. It's that even they can't find people to do these jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And if a robot can come in and take some of that heat off and do some of these tasks that normally a person would, and the owner and the operator can provide the human touch where needed, it solves a huge problem for the industry in the here and now.
For $1 an hour, by the way. Yeah.
So it's kind of like, people who feel that like this is a threat. It's like we're not.
Well, it is a threat to the workers. Like this is a common refrain, right? Like obviously, you're right. There's a shortage of workers that can't be found that the robot should go replace first. But they're not going to stop there when they realize how good they work and they're $1 an hour.
True. Right?
That's
true. I would agree with that, but but still, anyway, in an industry that needs labor, we need solutions.
Yeah, I mean it is a big problem. Like it's a problem up here in Canada too. Like we need a lot more people that would do a lot more things. We're on a big, huge infrastructure push up here, right? National railroads, ports, new pipelines. Thanks to the United States, that was a good kick in the butt that we needed to probably become maybe one of the next superpowers. We have a lot of resources up here, so that was nice. I'm excited to see where that goes. We were in Churchill a couple weeks ago with a port up there. They're building railroads up there, and they're going to start shipping stuff out of there. And it's crazy how fast they're trying to build up here now. But imagine if you're trying to build national infrastructure like that, and you can just deploy 50,000 robots to build your railroad train tracks all over the place. 24/7 workers, you get a lot of stuff done, right?
Absolutely. They don't need breaks. Don't need to sleep.
Yeah, that's one of the interesting things I laughed at for the last year or two when you hear about all the news reports about China's in serious trouble because nobody's having babies anymore and they won't have any workers. Really? Are you sure? Are you sure? Because they already have a $15,000 robot you can buy from China that does 50% of your campground tasks. So I think China will be just fine in workers. But anyway, back to the campground of the future. I don't know. What else is there?
There's.
Go.
I mean,
go ahead.
It's kind of endless what you could. Well,
let's go through this list. Let's go through this list and see if there's anything that stands out because we don't want to do campground of the future again. Jessica, share the screen over here.
Yeah.
So we got discovery, research, and booking. This is back to my list. I think we stopped at number 7, but 6 was discovery, research, and booking. Search replaced by agents. Already doing that. We've talked about that before. Reputation 2.0. Blockchain verified review tokens curb spam. This is interesting to me. Just the how people are going to leave reviews in the future and consume that content. So that's interesting. Sensors auto upload cleanliness scores. That'll be interesting to monitor. Parks carry a trust score that influences AI agent recommendations more than human reviews. Ooh, that would be interesting. I wonder what would happen to the Good Sam rating. It would be less trustworthy. On-chain micropayments. Smart contract deposits settle instantly. No chargebacks. We did talk about that last week. Socioeconomic shifts that multiply travel demand. Remote and micro schooling. 12% of U.S. K-12 now hybrid. Con World School pilots. By 2050, families roam midweek. Parks add education STEM labs and fiber classrooms. UBI guaranteed income. See, universal basic income is not the answer either. But 20 plus city pilots worldwide. AI tax proposals in the U.S. Shoulder season weekday occupancy rises. That will happen. Like, it won't happen because of UPI, but like you're going to see if less people have to go to the office during the day, you're going to see naturally, like they're not restricted to camping on the weekends anymore, right?
Right.
4-day work week adopted by greater than 200 large firms. Currently, higher productivity. 3-night micro vacation booms. Fractional site membership trends. Retail and logistics. Drone resupply corridors. 15-minute delivery of ice, s'mores kits, and prescriptions. Autonomous box trucks from Kodiak and Volvo in 2035. Central warehouse bulk drops to parks at 2 a.m. Restocking the store robots. That'd be interesting. Circular economy kiosks. Guest drop broken gear, on-site recyclers, shreds, and 3D prints tent stakes or cup hooks. That would be cool. NASA already does that already. So that recycles and reprints new tools.
Mm-hmm.
That's not that far out of it. Risk and regulations to track airspace zoning. Low altitude eVTOL lanes may require runway insurance or obstruction light retrofits on lodge roofs. Data sovereignty 2032, the right to algorithmic transparency laws. AI pricing engines must expose factors. Parks need compliance dashboards. Wildfire and climate zones, satellite AI risk maps could spike insurance unless parks hard scrape perimeters and use sensor-triggered sprinkler walls. Action items for owners starting tomorrow. Tech stack, open API, property management system. Fiber backbone in trenches you're already digging. Battery-powered pedestals to due by 2030. Battery-ready pedestals. We talked about that. EV V2G capable service panels. Guest experience due now. Train staff and experience guiding, not just check-in. Due by 2030. Partner with augmented reality content creators for trail overlays. Due now. Energy and water. Solar shade quotes. We didn't even read that, Scott, and yet somehow we knew. Solar. Sub-meter pilot. Gray water bioreactor feasibility study by 2030. Brand positioning due now. Start collecting sensor data to feed future AI brokers. Due by 2030. Trademark your analog zone or skyport glamp concepts. Bottom line, between 2025 and 2050, a campground morphs from a parking lot with utilities into a microgrid village logistics hub, mood enhancement retreat, and AI-curated adventure concierge. The winners will automate the drudgery, robots and predictive AI, so humans can amplify the magic, storytelling, and community. Design for modular flexibility, pads that accept today's fifth wheel but re-rig easily for tomorrow's flying EV landing pad.
All right. Right on. I love
it's
that.
not bad. Like, it's not, I mean, why not just make the pad square and a little bit longer and then like put a little line on there? Like, they can't back in straight anyway, right?
Right.
So treat data as currency, feeding booking agents and energy markets alike. Blend tech and nature invisibly, letting guests dial digital layers up or down like a volume knob. Plan backward from that reality, and the next quarter century looks less like sci-fi and more like a scalable, wildly profitable upgrade path. What do you think?
I love it.
That's it? You're going to make me run the rest of the whole show?
No, I think a lot of those things are, again, they're not that far out. I mean, it's kind of looking at the world through a different lens in some respects. Taking into account a lot of the things we've talked about throughout the weeks, months of this podcast, but also just taking seriously what's happening. But I go back to the whole notion of making some of these changes now is low risk. It's not like you're making some huge leap that's going to put you at financial risk.
There you go. There's a list in front of you. Without me reading this, pick out one that you want to talk about. For our audience on the podcast, you can come watch us on YouTube.
Okay, I'm sorry.
What are you sorry for? You don't have to be sorry.
Because I'm just kind of going through all these and I'm not saying anything while I'm doing it. How about on-site co-working sheds with fiber? Encourage weekday stays from remote workers.
Are people going to work?
Well,
I'm just being
assuming that some of them will be.
Some of them for sure will be. But okay. We got more. Let's see. I'll pick out a single QR code at check-in opens the pool gate, bathhouse, and laundry. No keys to lose.
I mean, some of these things, like I see a gear library rents premium hammocks and paddle boards via self-service lockers. That kind of thing, someone should be doing right now.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff you can do already. That's the point.
Yeah.
2025 to 2030, right?
Drone photography packages, giving departing guests a 4K aerial view of their rig and site. You should be doing that now. It's like, or you could be.
Yeah, like put the row up at like not at check-in, but just send a text message to the person. Hey, do you want to purchase a photo of your memory of the thing? We have the drone of your rig here and your setup and maybe your kids playing outside or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if not, we'll destroy it for privacy. We're not going to keep it, right? But like, here's your chance to purchase it for $30. We'll frame it and do everything else.
I mean, many of these things I see, a single QR code at check-in opens the pool gate, bathhouse, and laundry. It's like, okay, yeah, do that.
Yeah,
So
that's where this list is the intentional, like what can you do now or in the very near future?
Yeah, I mean, solar panel shade carports. The shade part of that is important. That's something EVs, there's kind of an anti-EV backlash that's occurred the last few months, but that's going to go away because EVs are the future. Let's face it, they are. Let's see. AI sentiment analysis flags negative reviews in real time and drafts personalized apologies. That real time factor there is huge. I think, that if you can, and
well, we already do that. Like we already have AI for the the reviews that we respond to. Like not in real time. Like, they have to leave the review first, right? On Google. Like, but once you leave the review, like it pulls in the review instantly. We have an AI that analyzes the sentiment, and we have an AI that responds to the review in seconds.
Right.
So we do that for our clients already.
Exactly, and we had talked about some other stuff where where you could like flag problems while they're occurring, so you can intervene immediately.
Yeah, that would for sure maybe be an interesting future.
The cashless camp store, that whole thing, like the Amazon stores in the airports, it's like that's, this is all good stuff that, people like, especially, because you could leave it open 24 hours and people like, that kind of stuff. Chat GPT plugin to translate your rules. I don't know why. I just saw that. I thought it was kind of funny. Mm-hmm. The RFID thing is something we've talked about in the past. There's so much here. It's like I can just you just go through. I think anyone who sees this list could find so many things that they could start working on, like immediately if you're not doing it, and just to think about it. The mobile wellness wagon, it's like
right, here's 2030 to 2050 Boulder mid and long range concepts. Self-driving Class B camper vans circle scenic highways at night and dock at your park by sunrise. Why would they circle the scenic highways at night? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Wouldn't that just waste energy?
Yeah, that one, that came up before in our.
I think it stumbled before.
And it's like,
form linen turnovers. Like imagine the amount of time that you could have between check-in and check-out be cut down. You could offer 1 night stays instead of 2 night stays because it's a whole lot cheaper. Like instead of a 2-night minimum, right?
Yeah.
Many people have.
Campsites become microgrids, between surplus solar panel back to the. I mean, a campground could look into that now. Each state is different in what they allow. But it's worth checking into. You put enough solar and it's running. Say you have one one of those shaded sites or a shaded RV site with solar panels. If someone's not there too, you can be generating electricity to sell back to the grid. Why not?
4D printed tents change insulation properties with ambient temperature, available as rentals. That's a new one. That's pretty interesting, though.
How about autonomous drones map mosquito density?
And release sterile males for bite-free evenings.
Well, there you have it. I mean, what could be better than that?
I like that. Modular 3D cabins, hyper.
This number 59, the timeshare memberships, that's interesting for a campground to do something like that. Like just subscribe to roaming nights across a network of parks managed by blockchain.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's a really
Well, there's
interesting
all kinds of. We explored this a couple years ago with blockchain when it was big with some of the parks, like loyalty programs and stuff. Like imagine, I mean, like you could give away like a site a year on the blockchain, right? And then like you have a guest who has the right to that site for a certain date of the year or one night a year that's always on the blockchain, but then they own that and they could theoretically resell the right to that site to somebody else, which you wouldn't want to normally have happen, right? But what if when they resell it, they could resell it for a higher value because there was bigger demand, and then because it's on the blockchain, written in the contract of that blockchain, you get a 10% cut of the profit. And nobody stayed at your park yet. They've just resold the right to stay at your park.
Right.
You get a cut of it.
I think
Right?
that's a fascinating idea.
Hmm?
I think.
There's all kinds of so many cool things you can do with the blockchain. It's crazy. Let's see, what else is there? Exoskeleton rentals. Ford has those already. Ford was using those a couple years ago. I almost invested in a company that does it. I should go look them up and see what they're doing. Company that builds the exoskeletons. They were building them for workers to avoid injuries. That give you extra power and stuff like that. Smart Asphalt charges EVs via inductive coils as rigs drive onto their pad. That would be interesting. I don't know how you'd future-proof that, though, until a standard come out for that, right?
Yeah, because I know that there's some places in Europe that are already doing that kind of stuff right now.
Subscription meal printers in cabins replicate chef recipes with plant-based proteins grown on-site. Interesting. Then you don't even have to have a restaurant. Every cabin could be its own restaurant.
Yep.
That'd be pretty interesting. Or rent our robot that can do our chef robot. He can come and he can cook you dinner in your cabin. Pretty cool. That's a nice add-on, right?
Yeah.
Light field projectors, floating solar pontoons, AI-driven wildlife cameras, immersive storytelling drones project holograms of historical figures along heritage trails. Yeah, automated vertical farms grow salad greens for the camp cafe. That's also another thing, right? Like grow your own food.
Sure. Having it on site, people love that kind of stuff, and it's practical too. I mean,
And it tastes better.
Yeah, it does, absolutely.
So much better. Robot baristas memorize each guest latte order and have it ready at dawn. Yeah, think about this, right? You're struggling right now to remember Sally, who came to your park twice last year. Right? And some of the things about her. Like, you're about to have AI that remembers everything that Sally did during your stay. And you'll be able to go to Sally when she comes back. You'll be able to, like, have a pair of glasses where the AI just talks into your ear, or Elon's brain implant or whatever, right? And you'll just know who Sally is. And you'll instantly have a visual of everything she did during her stay, projected maybe in front of your eye. And you'll be like, hey, Sally, do you remember? Yeah, that was so great. It was so great seeing you last time. I remember how your kid enjoyed the jungle gym, but like you didn't really go to the pool during your last day. Was there something wrong? Anything I can do to encourage you to like that? Right?
Right.
You're able to remember literally everything about literally every guest. And that sounds creepy, but it's better personalized service.
Right, because you don't have to present back to the guest everything you know about them. What you need to do is use your own judgment and pick out a couple that are relevant. Like, again, remembering someone's favorite drink. Like if they have a favorite, coffee drink or something like that they like. To remember that is like, it goes such a long way toward, the hospitality experience.
I want a floating sauna pod that drifts on the lake, guided back by GPS when the sessions end. Can you imagine the insurance on that, though? How many people do you think? And it's not like, if there's let's just keep in mind here, before you answer that question, Scott, there is a percentage of people who wipe poop on the walls at campgrounds. So
Right.
My question to you is, what percentage of people will be like, oh, I love a relaxing sauna experience, get out on the lake and just like open the door and then like step out and like drown in the lake? like not a less than 5% for sure, but a percentage, right?
But enough that it's a problem.
Yeah, it's an insurance liability, right? Maybe
Correct.
not drown, but like they need rescued or right, get hit in the head by a paddleboard that's going around or something.
Your risk manager would have issues.
Yeah. Implantable health chips sync with first aid drones that drop AEDs within 3 minutes. We talked about this last week with the health stuff. Edible water bubbles replace plastic bottles at hydration stations along the trail. Edible water bubbles. I don't know. That would be interesting. What if you could just have water bubbles follow you down the trail? And so if you got thirsty, you just turn around and went.
Right there, and there's just.
Would they? Are you sure?
I don't know. I don't think.
Jessica said they would accumulate dust.
I think it'd be
I
enough.
don't know if they would. Maybe the bubble has like a super special shield.
This idea, well, if you take away the idea of the implantable health chip, but having some other like biometric thing for yourself, especially if you have health issues, but with first aid drones, it's kind of like, if you're out there and you have something, having a drone that could bring assistance that quickly there's something that you could use to reduce your insurance rates.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about increasing them with other stuff, but that kind of thing. I mean, just think, if you think about the whole idea of safety, security, and how people view camping and being outdoors, just knowing that you could do something that would provide assistance much quicker would be that's a big deal. Just from a human perspective as well as practical.
For sure. All right. I don't have anything else. Have any final thoughts?
This was fun. This was good. It's like just kind of going a little crazy sometimes, but thinking about things that are realistic, like this last exercise, looking at things that people could do now. And we talk about all this a lot. It's the idea of doing something, looking ahead, thinking about these things, and I can't emphasize it enough that many of these things, if you do it now, it is not a waste of time and money to do. It's like just the solar stuff, solar, wind, whatever. Where we have our off-grid cabin, our neighbor has solar panels and a little wind turbine. And so one of the two is always going. We're up, there, and he has plenty of power. He has in his house, he has a full-size refrigerator, washer, and dryer that don't use propane. That they're electricity. He has, an entertainment center, everything he wants. But he's off-grid, just using those two things, because again, he always has one of the two. And if you just thinking about your power needs, power generation, as we've talked about for 2 weeks now, is going to be a bigger issue moving forward. Whether it becomes critical immediately or over time, it's going to happen. And I think it's a good investment. If you can go off grid, do it. That's my recommendation. It may not be 100% practical, but that's my recommendation.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us for another episode of Outwired, guys. If you're not scared away, by all our predictions. Come back in 5 years when you realize that we're right, sort of like 18, sort of like AT&T. And then you can play clips from us, and whoever is doing a podcast at that time will laugh at us and say we were half right. We're 40% right. But until then, have a good show, or have a good show. Did I say that?
Have a good show.
Have a good time running your campground or whatever you're doing. Be well, install solar, love life, enjoy the world, embrace AI, learn ChatGPT, and say goodbye. See you later, Scott.
Bye.